Hello and welcome to The Big Show with myself, Pete Selby, alongside James Terrell, who's not dead. We have Tom and we have Jono Towers, and we are discussing on this international break the fact that Leicester only deal in great goals. We only score great goals. We've got a whole load of stuff to talk about with Leicester, about the fact that we only deal in great goals, the fact that we are right towards the top of the league after a 3-1 win at Swansea. We've got stuff to talk about off the field with Susan Whelan, with Milan Mandaric, with Hamza Chowdhury scoring another great goal, this time for Bangladesh, not for Leicester. And also maybe touch on the stadium expansion that's cropped up as well over the last few days. Whatever the subject you want to talk about, you can do on The Big Show. That's why it is The Big Show. Now, make sure you do subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to, for fuck's sake. We've been going for 12 years, and you can subscribe on Spotify and also on Apple. But if you want to watch us and never miss a show, make sure you join us on our YouTube channel. Click subscribe, and you need to be subscribed to enter our fantastic competition, which will be announced soon. Maybe something that we're going to do, not in time for Christmas in terms of a prize, but I think in terms of a prize that maybe you could then use for Christmas. So it's going to be before Christmas. What that is, not quite sure yet, but it's going to be good. And you need to be a subscriber to our YouTube channel. It's completely free. Just click subscribe, and it means you'll never miss a show. And you're entered in our competition, right? I think first word has to be with James. You don't have to go into too many details, James, but you are alive and kicking. How are you?
Yes, I'm back from my injury. I've had 3 weeks on the surgery table. I say 3 weeks. I was in surgery for an hour. But yes, I am fine. My entire stomach is no longer covered in a bruise. And of
That's
the
good. That's good.
holes that I had in my chest, only one remains. So I can't complain, really.
I mean, I'm no doctor, but I think that's probably for the best. But great to have you back on the show. Tom, how do we find you?
You find me very well, thanks, Pete. It's good to be with you boys again. I've got a moustache, but with the 3 points in our back pocket, I've got a smile as well. So very happy to be back.
I'm just going to angle the camera down a bit because the light looks like it's the Lord looking down on me. But of course, the Lord only looks down on Fatawu. That's what we all know. And Jono, don't fall in love with a lone player. It's a bit difficult because I think Jordan James, it's getting quite difficult because he can kick a football where he wants it to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Evening, everyone. Yeah, good to see everyone again. I'm sitting here feeling very content and very kind of at ease with where we're at, to be honest. 3-1 victory went down very nicely. And so, yeah, easing into the international break and looking forward to the next game, to be honest. I generally hate international breaks, but, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. But when you're in third place, Jono, it doesn't matter, does it? When you're in third place, you can bask in the glory. It doesn't matter that Coventry are top; they can go and score goals against other teams, not us. That's absolutely fine. We've got a packed show today, right? I think we should just start with what's happened away at Swansea. We don't have to go into any great detail. Talk about whatever subject you like, but Leicester only scored great goals. I don't recall a season like this in terms of the quality of goals. I really don't, and I go back quite a way now. It's getting quite silly, actually, how many the years go by. But how many goals that we've scored so far, and how many of them have been fantastic? We've scored 13 goals. We have to have, when a good goal goes in, it could be contender for goal of the month. But then when a decent goal goes in, you have that angle of, well, a football club might have 10 in a season that you have to kind of round down to 10 to get a goal of the season campaign going for their own club. So there might be one or two that creep in that aren't very good. If you have a poor season, there might be a tap in. I mean, last season, I don't know what goal for the opposition, maybe an own goal won. But anyway, but this season, I think we've had probably 5 genuine goal of the seasons already. And it's difficult to choose. I don't know really where to start. I mean, I'm going to go with which one is the best from Saturday. And I think it's going to be Fatawu. First of all, James's goal is fantastic. You expect it from Fatawu, so James just goes maybe there. But I think with Fatawu, it's the fact that he dribbled past a player, and it's one of those dribbles where you kind of drag the ball around. It kind of sticks to your boots, and you kind of walk and run with it. I don't know how you would do that. And then, of course, he lets fly into the top corner. But just 2 absolute stunners. I'm going to go and kick the ball off with this with this game. I'm going to go with Fataru's was the best goal, but apart from the number 9 not scoring, what a great win. And yeah, we only dealing great goals, James. Surely that's made you feel better.
I mean, yeah. Actually, I was at the Wrexham game, which was on the Tuesday, and Fataru didn't get a kick, actually. He didn't play very well at all. Well, he didn't play very well. All of the attacks were just going down Jeremy Monga. So it was nice to see he played quite well against Swansea, and his goal was very good. And yeah, I don't know how many goals Fataru has got so far. I think it's 3 or 4. I think all of them have been from just about outside the box. So which probably means that our XG is very low. But yeah, it was probably our best. It was our best performance of the season on Saturday. We played very well in the first half against Wrexham, and very bad in the second. So we still have the team aren't particularly very fluid at the minute, and there are some consistency issues. But I mean, I think it's getting to about exactly 2 months since Marty took over. He's not been there very long. For some reason, it feels like he's been there for longer, but he hasn't. But I mean, we're 9 games in. For the sake of argument, let's say we'll still be in the top 6 after next week. If you're in the top 6 after a quarter of the season, who would have taken that?
Absolutely. And we obviously await what's going to happen in the courts, and that might rumble on for an awful long time, Tom. But it was a win needed after a number of very frustrating draws. I was really frustrated from my own deathbed with a real bout of man flu. It was a severe case. Do you know what I mean? I had to put some Vicks on at night. It got to that stage. I know we all feel the pain, but I was so frustrated with that second half performance. We just fell in a hole. It looked like we'd been playing 9 games in 3 days, and we just completely collapsed after what was arguably, and I think it was Jono who said this on the preview. Rob saying that it was the best probably first half performance of the season, and then we completely collapsed and could have lost it in the end. So it was a much needed win, but it's just some goals. Which one was your favourite?
Oh, do you know what? I know this kind of doesn't count, but I just want to give a special credit just for the fact that for JJ's shot that actually hit the post and almost went in, because I think had that have gone in, that was on his weaker foot. Shrugging off 3 players, having a fourth try and close him down, and then almost get the goal would have been just simply incredible. I'm going to go with JJ just because I think Fatawu bangs them in every week. More broadly, I think the game was great. It wasn't set up to be great. I think Swansea had drawn something like 3 on the bounce prior to playing us, and obviously we'd had that spate of draws as well. So it had all the hallmarks of a game that wasn't really going to go anywhere. But thankfully, that's not what happened, and I think we needed that result. I'm totally with James. I think we're starting to see the impression that Marty's having on the squad and that fluidity of play. The one downer that I will just put out there, the fact that all of our goals seem to be screamers is fantastic entertainment, but perhaps slightly concerning that we're not just developing play where we're tapping them in the box and obviously getting those much needed goals that we will need later on in the season to win games. So you love to see it, but hopefully that's something they're working on during the break.
Yeah, completely. We're still missing that number 9, and you just wonder how Marty's going to... Is it going to be a decision from Marty, or is it going to be one of the players who actually steps forward and grabs that number 9 position, bags a couple of goals at home to Portsmouth? Maybe it could be Patson Daka. It could be Jono. Don't rule it out. Maybe rule it out.
Yeah, I was about to sort of say a similar thing to what Tom said. I mean, we've scored some cracking goals, absolutely. We are still winning games on moments of greatness and brilliance, which fortunately we can do at this level. But it'd be nice that we started on a regular basis sort of score. I mean, without trying to sound too boring and old man about it, score some just regular goals with maybe some strikers hitting the target. That would be nice. But yeah,
a what? A striker? What? I don't explain.
So, by all means, I'm over the moon that we're scoring. We scored 3 goals in a game, but let's not get carried away. The rest of the time, we haven't. So one performance doesn't make it all that great. So I'm going to sound a little bit pessimistic, even though I'm actually sitting here quite content and happy about things. But my feeling against Swansea is when they scored the penalty, I was like, here we go again. We're going to get another draw. Or maybe we'll. And at one point, it looked like that they could have snatched a winner. And the fine margins in this game is amazing. Because if we'd walked away from that game with a draw, I think we'd have all been sitting here moaning about things and whatnot. But now we snatched the 3-1 victory and probably deserved it in the end. To be fair,
and we're still moaning.
Oh yeah, I guess I am. But actually, I'm sitting here feeling a little bit more upbeat about things. But it's only on the back of Fatawu hitting the back of the net, and then we get the third from that. So a moment of brilliance from him changes the whole sentiment about how we feel, I think. Because if we'd walked away with a 1-1 again, we'd have all been moaning and groaning and going, where's this going? So it's these fine margins, I think, is crazy, isn't it? I mean, one thing I was going to say about the goals that were scored, I don't know if you guys ever played sensible soccer back in the day.
Oh, yes. I'm old enough.
Yeah.
On the Amiga.
The 2 goals that were scored on Saturday were classic sensible soccer goals, from just outside the box, curling them into the top corner. Don't know if anyone's, partial to a game of sensible soccer, but that's how I used to play it all the time. Roberto Baggio curling them into the top corner. So it reminded me of those kind of goals from that game, really, fantastic efforts from just outside the box. Love to see it, but I can't see us having a whole season playing that way, scoring screamers week in, week out. So I think we've got to get to a point where we're developing a system and a game that actually gets us goals from proper, where I say proper, from regular players, i.e. let's get some strikers scoring goals. And yeah, so I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm happy.
You're true. You are right.
I'm generally happy with the fact that we've won and we're in third and everything else. However, I still think there's work to do. And I think that there's definitely an agreement there's work to do. I mean, I liked the cut of Marty's jib. He kind of says it how it is. He says it how we see it as fans. He was frustrated and when we were drawing, and then he didn't get carried away when we won as much as he said, I like the result. There's still work to do, So, yeah. The other thing is that Carranza came on and missed an absolute sitter, which was a frustrating one to see. Because if he'd bagged that one, we would have gone, yeah, maybe it's his opportunity to start making a claim for a start, But he looked really quite clumsy in that moment, and I was like, is he actually the answer that we're looking for? And at that moment, I was like, he's not, is he?
That's
Maybe
true. It's awkward. It's awkward because we want to get the strikers going, but you three are a bunch of fun sponges, aren't you? We're sitting here third in the league. We've scored brilliant goals. Leicester only scored great goals. And all of a sudden, I've gone from being actually really quite happy to we're struggling here, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? We ain't got a striker, so it's all looking. What happens if the wonder goals stop? Of course, they're not going to stop. We've scored brilliant goals all season. Doesn't matter what happened against Wrexham or against Oxford and all that. We're going to beat Portsmouth 5-0, and all 5 are going to join the other 5 stunners, and we're going to have a compilation DVD that we're going to be playing for years and years and years. Ignore the 101 great goals. Can I borrow that tape in a train spotting style? It's going to be, can you borrow the 25-26 season of Leicester City? They're great goals. That's the one that you want to borrow. Oh dear. Yeah, anyway, you are all right though. You are correct.
I think you're right, Pete. Maybe I should go away and give my head a wobble, to be honest, because we are in third. We've scored some fantastic goals and we are making progress week in, week out. We are seeing better performances, and I think he's building something. We're only less than 10 games in, so it's too early.
Also, I think everyone sings off the same hymn sheet. I think with Leicester at the moment, I think everyone's impressed by the manager. I think everyone knows exactly what's wrong with the side, the number 9. We need to score more goals from that 9 position, and I think everyone understands that. I think 8 of the positions are pretty much solid now, and it's just the others who can interchange who will be the number 9, whether it's going to be a Monger or Mavadidi out wide, whether it's going to be a Chowdhury or maybe Ricardo at right back. I think that's I think the midfield looks very solid with James alongside Winks, and then maybe the number 10 as well. I think those positions are the only ones in the side at the moment are kind of up for debate. So I think everyone's at Leicester in terms of supporters, and this is just like from the brief handful of people I've spoken to over the last, say, like 10 days or so. I think everyone's kind of roughly on the same level. But moving away from the actual team itself, and again, this is a complete free-for-all, we'll just mention about Milan Mandaric, because we realised beforehand, actually, when talking about him, who sadly died at the age of 87. First of all, Nigel Pearson, he's the one person who uses Twitter and X correctly, because he's actually very thoughtful in what he says. He uses it for a personal platform to actually say and give out messages of either thanks or help or support or maybe criticism, but he uses it kind of properly, what it was mainly designed for. And he put a really nice statement out about when Milan passed away, called him a wonderful, eccentric 87-year-old, really young at heart, called him Columbo at the end. Now, when we were promoted season 2008, 2009, obviously Mandaric was in charge and really got the ball rolling with obviously Nigel Pearson and all the backroom staff, etc. And then he was the one, as James mentioned, passed it on and sold the club ultimately to the right people in King Power and Vishai, etc. And so away from Leicester, he obviously owns a number of clubs, famously Portsmouth, and then on to Sheffield Wednesday. Didn't quite go well in a few other places away from these shores. But overall, when you look at the job he did at Leicester, in buying a club for cheap in League One, of course you're going to buy a club the size of Leicester at that stage, and with the ground that we've got, and then look to sell it on at a big profit. That's what he does, and that's what he did very successfully. So in his brief spell as owner at Leicester, he did amazingly well, and obviously brought in Nigel Pearson to the club, got us promoted at the first time of asking, and ultimately sold us to the right people. So very sad news. But Nigel Pearson once again, and I'll throw in one other thing as well with Susan Whelan. Very noticeable that on Twitter, messages for Susan Whelan, not in support or in terms of criticism that she was let go by the football club. And remember, we don't know where to. She could basically be now going back to King Power. She came from King Power. So she could go back to King Power and try and sort out the duty-free side. And then we get in a new CEO, or maybe Top carries on at Leicester. Go and sort out that side of things, and Top can run the football club. But it was interesting that Nigel Pearson also, two of the biggest hitters, really, you can't get more from that era, in Wes Morgan and Jamie Vardy, also put statements out in thanking Susan Whelan for her support, but also for her support for their families, etc., and the way she dealt with that side of things, everything off the field. And I think we all knew that, but ultimately, when it comes down to her and her tenure at Leicester, it's massively successful. But ultimately, you do look at what's happened in the last few years, and the book kind of stops with the CEO when it comes to off the field shenanigans, and we'll see what happens with the point deduction. So interesting on that side of things, and then we'll see what happens with Rudkin and maybe points deductions later. But yeah, some interesting messages over the last few days. James, Tom, or Jono, whoever wants to go first.
Well, I mean, I think with Susan Whelan, it's difficult to know exactly why she's gone. The reports from Rob Dorset, who is the Midlands football correspondent for Sky Sports News, it seems to be a breakdown in the relationship between her and Rudkin. What she's done for she has been one of the top 3 or 4 people at Leicester for the last 15 years. And this has been the greatest 15-year period in the club's history, and probably, and almost certainly will ever be. So it's difficult to criticize her given everything that's happened. Ultimately, the fact that we've lost £215 million over the last 3 to 4 seasons, that is one of her main responsibilities. The reason that we had BC Game on the front of our shirt, which obviously that company had their license revoked by the Gambling Commission and went into bankruptcy, and we got a warning because of that. The reason we don't have a sponsor on our shirt at the minute who was supposed to be K-Bet, a company that doesn't really exist, is to some extent because of her. So the fact that she's gone, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's very handled very oddly, in the sense that you just have one statement posted on the website. But that's kind of the culture of Leicester City that has been since King Power took over, which is to be very secretive. Maybe secretive is the wrong word. Private, they might prefer private than secret about their inner dealings. So I don't think we'll probably get much more than this that we have now. But yeah, she did amazing things at the club. But to a certain extent, if the next 5 years, let's say, or the next 2 or 3 years go really badly because of the financial losses, then that's on her as well. But yeah, I wouldn't swap the last 10 years for what might happen in the last 5, obviously.
No, not at all. And I just wonder, Tom, that whether, and of course we do not know, it's pure speculation, but from sitting here right now, in my head, I'm looking at it going, she's gone now because of what's going to happen in the next couple of months in terms of the points deduction. It's going to be more than likely 9, probably 12 points. And if so, there's going to be big fingers pointed by loads of Leicester supporters at the CEO, but she's already gone. And I just look at that and go, maybe they're trying to shield her from what possibly would have happened if she was still at the football club in the next 2 or 3 months, or whenever the FA, I don't know, get off their hands is probably the most polite way of putting it, and actually sort it out and give us the deduction.
Yeah. I think it's interesting timing. I'd love to know more. I doubt we ever will. I'll say straight off the bat, big thanks to Susan for her service to the club. 15 years is a long time, and like James said, that period has been the best period in our club's history. Apparently, Susan was instrumental in bringing Claudio into the football club, and we all know how that went. So you have to give her a lot of credit for that. Likewise, it's the flip side of that same coin. There's been some massive errors financially that's been made recently, and some very questionable decisions, particularly around the sponsorship, which James has laid out. So I think change overall is due. We needed to refresh things. I think that it's clear that the leadership team not speaking to each other, not working together, or at least not getting along has an impact on the club, on the culture. And I'm a big believer in that filtering down to the football pitch as well. So I'm glad to see the shake-up in that regard, but I am sad because I know obviously she's played a massive role in the successes we've had. And if Jamie Vardy and Wes Morgan are coming out and praising her and giving her, a round of congratulations, well, that's good enough for me. So glad to see a bit of movement. Obviously, this opens up a position. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with that and how it's filled. There could be the possibility that maybe Rudkin gets a promotion of sorts and gets pushed into a position where he's no longer involved with recruitment. And I think that would be hopefully the best outcome, but we'll see how that goes. More changes needed, but transparency as well. We'll have to see.
Yeah, there is one suggestion which I was talking with a friend yesterday actually, and I was talking about the timing of the Susan Whelan, Jono, and I just floated the idea that if Leicester are actually going well in the league, which we are, then is there the possibility, because if you were ever going to let go of John Rudkin, now would be an ideal time, because whoever then would come into the football club would, A, you would have a little bit of time to replace them, and B, they would have a bit of time to then work out what we will need in January. And I've always got this sneaky feeling in January that we haven't signed a player for cash money because we're going to go to court with the FA, with whoever, and we'll be able to stand up and go, look, we sold 40 to 60 million pounds worth of players. We have not spent a penny. Yes, there have been these maybe misdemeanors. We may have missed it by a few million or whatever in the last few years. I don't know. But look what we've done now. We're good, boys. You know what I mean? We're all right. And if we spent 15 million on a centre forward at the end of the transfer window, then we would have gone to court going, well, actually, we spent 50 million on a centre forward. We don't care. La-di-da, this, that, and the other, and maybe get a full whack of points deductions. So maybe it's the case that in January we can actually go out and spend a bit of money. And if we do bring in a new director of football, there is a bit of time for them to realise what we need and go out and get that player and get it all sorted. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is some more news coming along down the pipeline from the football club in the form of Rudkin's going, because on the field everything's going well, the manager's there, we can bring in a director of football who maybe knows Martí Fuentes, maybe is an old pal, or even knows exactly, comes in, goes, I know what style of football he's playing, everything's going well, and that's on the football front. Let's bring in a guy now and go and get that centre forward to try and get back to maybe the 12 points that we lose whenever that court case goes. Possibility.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, there's a lot of logic in what you're saying. However, we don't.
I've never heard that before ever, by the way. That's the first time anyone said that to me. So.
I mean, I was following it and it seemed to make sense to me. Certainly sacking or moving Rudkin aside would make a lot of sense to me. If this is the first part of that happening, I think then, yeah, I'm fully in favour. Echo the words of Tom. Thanks Susan for her service. But I think we all recognised, and we've recognised for a long time, that at the board level, it needed a shake-up and it needed a refresh, and that this is hopefully the start of more things to come. So thanks, Susan, for her service. Yes, she's served as well, and we've had a fantastic 15 years or so. But yeah, I think we all said it's time for a shake-up. So the right decision's been made. I think she needs to move on. We need to get new people in. That includes Rudkin for me. So I would welcome Rudkin moving side, or if he's still involved in a different capacity. And yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I think so. But Jono,
if Susan Whelan and Rudkin moved at the same time, there would be probably a massive vacuum, wouldn't there? So I can see the sense of doing it progressively over a period of time. Whether the timing of it all is down to the fact that we're going to be whacked big time by points deduction, who knows? I think they're still prepared to fight this, aren't they? Even if there's a 9-point deduction, I think it's not a given, is what I'm trying to say. From what I've read and heard, they are obviously going to be trying to punish us, but it's not a foregone conclusion that we're going to get whacked with a 9-point deduction. So let's wait and see on that one. But yeah, more to come hopefully from the boardroom in terms of a shake-up.
Yeah, I think so. A number of comments coming through. Dorco, how much is shirt sponsorship worth? I think it was 30 million off the top of my head for 2 years of BC game whilst we're in the Premier League. So how that got referred to when relegation happened, and also obviously that all went rather wrong with BC game. And then
we could have a shirt sponsor now if we didn't go to a company that was operating out of a shack in Ho Chi Minh City that were allowing bets on cockfighting.
Yeah, I mean, just on that shirt sponsorship thing, it's occurred to me for a while now that we haven't had a shirt sponsor all season. So
why don't normal, as if it's normal that we haven't got a shirt sponsor?
Why, rather than having an empty shirt, why don't they open it up game by game and have a different sponsor, local charities, for instance, to promote local businesses or local charities and give them the shirt for free? Because otherwise, you've got an empty shirt. Why not just whack a local name or a local charity on there and give them, a bit of promotion for free?
It's another thing with the shirt sponsor would be for me as well. If come January again, you're moving towards signing a player, all of a sudden Leicester City announced that they've signed a 6-month deal with themselves, with King Power, and it goes to the FA, and the FA all for years and years and years undervalued what King Power could sponsor Leicester. Even when we were finishing 5th all the time, they undervalued, because if you have the name of your owners essentially on your chest, you need to go to the FA, and the FA need to turn around and go, right, we think that's worth X amount of money. And because you can't just turn around and go, right, King Power can give us £300 million a year, because it's not worth that. But they always undervalued Leicester. And then when we didn't have King Power on, we went to BC Game. Now, yes, BC Game hated them as a sponsor, but they gave us £30 million over 2 years. King Power, off the top of my head, I think it was valued about 7.3. Don't know why that value was in my head, but around about that. It was basically double what we could get elsewhere. It was half of what we could get elsewhere. So the FA kind of valued the Leicester shirt, which of course they would do. They'll let other clubs go and be sponsored for hundreds of millions of pounds by their owners. That would be fine. But anyway, so I can see a point where Leicester come January, again, if everything's going well, King Power appear on the chest. They agree that it's worth, I don't know, 3 or 4 million, maybe a bit less, depending on what's what. Or maybe they bring in a sponsorship just for this season, or maybe it's over the next year because Leicester are looking like they may get promotion. And it's worth a certain amount of money. And guess what? That money is then spent on the centre forward. I can see these things really happening. I just think Leicester at the moment don't want to be seen as spending any money. And they're maybe just holding fire on a possibility of announcing something in January. And all of a sudden, a lot of dots are being kind of attached to each other. And it makes into a big signing, basically, a big arrow pointing to a centre forward. So that's my kind of
to the transparency thing we were talking about, because
yeah,
the club never confirmed or denied that K-Bet were going to be our sponsor. The shirt was leaked, and then a few days later, like 2 days later, Filippo Clare and Yosema wrote their story. I wrote my story. Not that had any impact, but
yes, it was. It was the straw that broke the story. Do you know what I mean? It broke the dam, and then it all flowed.
And when those pictures were leaked, the new sponsorship was supposed to be revealed the following week, and the club have just cancelled that. But they've never confirmed or denied that K-Bet were going to be our sponsor. But they've also not made any statement about why we have no shirt sponsor. So this is not that normal. It's not normal for a club of our size to not have a shirt sponsor. And I think one of the things going forward that if you want changes at the club would be this type of thing. You know, maybe more fan debates. I don't want to turn into the overlap and get bloody Jamie Carragher over. But we need more transparency in these types of areas.
Do you know? Sorry, Pete. Just one thing off that. What's really interesting about that situation for me is that the club never moved quickly, and they've almost been a little bit intransigent in the past to listen to fan feedback. So I think about things like Fox's Trust, safe standing, etc., etc. And with that leak, they moved incredibly quickly, and you almost to the point you wonder if it was almost testing the waters with the fans to see if they could get away with it. Obviously, that wasn't the case. If they had the option to get the money, I think they probably would. But you have to wonder, because it just goes against everything that we know about how they operate to some degree.
And also the stadium expansion has come up for debate over the last debate. I think it was one of them stories where it was posted and it was picked up by a number of football accounts, and a lot of it was completely wrong for a start. I think at one stage we were building a brand new 40,000 indoor arena. I think was posted on TalkSport, so they completely got it wrong. Classic kind of AI writing stories without actually someone checking it before it goes out. But the news that basically the planning permission essentially is ticking on. You know, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to get a wriggle on, or at least we're going to have to move a digger in at some point. As soon as that blade goes in the ground, then yes, it started and it's fine. The planning permission won't run out, but
December 2027 apparently.
Yeah, it's 2027, late 2027, December. So we need to get that going. But the one thing that frustrates me, because I think everyone understands the fact that we haven't started doing this because of relegation, and we all understand that. The one thing I would like Leicester to do, I don't think they need to make a statement on it per se. I don't think they need to turn around and go, we need to be in the Premier League for this to happen. If they do, then great. But what I would like them to do is to show us what they own. Show us the whole area. I think we know that they own the whole area, the British Gas area and all that, and all those old buildings. And in the great world of football, in the great world of football finance, to actually start the process, to level off that process, to demolish the buildings, to put a bit of tarmac down, to make some temporary kind of fans area, that won't cost an awful lot. Or at least they could maybe turn around and go, look, everyone, we're not going to build this brand new area, the hotel, the museum, the big new fan store, the arena, the multi-story car park, and also an extra 10,000 seats on the East End. We're not going to do that unless we're in the Premier League for a few years. So just hold fire. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to level off an area and turn it into this really temporary, but just not to make it look better, because it doesn't really matter overall, but just to show a little bit, because at the moment it's getting towards the stage where you're looking at a lot of other clubs and how they are progressing on with their ground and with their surrounding area more likely. That's what I'm really talking about. I'd just like a little bit more from the club. Or should we just be actually focused on what's happening on the field? And am I just looking at it going, actually, that's just a personal thing? What do you reckon?
Well, I'm not sure how much Leicester needs a 6,000 seater indoor multimedia, multi-sport bollocks, whatever type of thing they call these things, which is what part of the renovation is, isn't it? Alongside another hotel outside the stadium. If they can expand it to 40,000, why not? I'm not sure in the grand scheme of things how much difference that's going to make in terms of revenue and atmosphere and everything. It's going to make a difference, but it's not.
I think it's. Yeah, I know what you mean. I personally, I'm massively in favour of the stadium expansion, because if we're selling out grounds in the Championship, we can sell out a 40,000 ground. That's one thing. Secondly, and this is very much kind of a personal thing, it would make it so much easier for your standard Leicester City fan to get a ticket. It really would make it very easy. And that is a big thing. You play a cup game, you can get a ticket now if it's a League Cup game. If you get an FA Cup, more than likely you could get a ticket. But all of a sudden, you play a big game in the Premier League, or maybe even a lesser game in the Premier League, it's nigh on impossible to get a ticket. You get a 40,000 ground for your average fan. All of a sudden, there's going to be tickets available, and I think that's huge. All the other stuff, I think the indoor arena would. It depends on who moves in there. You know, for example, you've got a lot of indoor sports at Leicester. First of all, looking at the likes of the Riders, you look at Loughborough Lightning netball, for example. They're looking to try and move away from Loughborough University. They may even be trying to build an arena as well, but that would instantly. There's a lot of indoor, and of course, it was going to be the indoor esports centre of the UK essentially as well. So I don't know, but I just would like a little bit more from them, and maybe even actually just kind of going back on what I said earlier, actually. Maybe even, making a bit of a statement, going, look, this has been in the news the last few days. We hear you, but this is just the way that we're thinking at the moment. This is the idea. We're just going to let it see what happens this season. If we get into the Premier League, then we can kick on with this. Maybe actually a little bit, and maybe, who knows, maybe if the CEO is top, maybe he might be a little bit more vocal. I don't think so, Tom.
No, am I wrong in saying that part of the strategy with the stadium expansion was that it would allow us to raise our cap on what we could spend during the transfer window as well?
I'd have thought so,
yeah.
Because I thought, I can't remember the ins and outs, the details, but I remember that was something that stood out to me as to what I actually thought one of the reasons was that was driving the push for the expansion was to try and increase that cap. The other thing I don't understand is because I don't really understand planning permission, all that in the UK, but do they just need to start the actual works for it to then still remain valid and then it can continue?
I'd have thought so. I don't think it's about it has to be finished by December 2027. It's just that if they haven't started by December 2027, they have to reapply, because it's like things have changed in the last 3 years. There might be different rules, or whatever it might be. I'm fairly certain it doesn't have to be finished by then. It just has to be started.
I believe that would be the case as well. Just to go through a few of the comments as well. Oddfish saying that's Foxes on the Box saying, unfortunately, the King Powers have massive financial problems. Yeah, they do. So whether they could actually put a few million into the club, maybe not, even to fund a player if we have him on the shirt for 6 months or so. Very good. Yeah. Richard Houston, the club move at the pace that people at the top want them to. They don't give a shit about the fans, let's be honest. Dorco going, no point having a massive ground if fans can't afford the tickets, which is a very good point of view. I would also say, though, that if you have a lot of tickets available, maybe they can make them cheaper. So maybe if you do have a League Cup game, for example, or an FA Cup game, you could really go quite low and go £10 a ticket, £5 a ticket, try and fill the ground up. That could easily be a thing. So they kind of work two ways, but I do get your point. And Richie Houston, yeah, darts and snooker. You get a lot of darts, a lot of snooker at the Morningside. I think it's still called the Morningside in Leicester. And of course, Leicester, the home of snooker. With my cousin Mark Selby. He's not my cousin, but there you go. I do say that occasionally. And some people believe me as well. And I've let that lie a few times. And there you go, got into a few bit of trouble. Of course, Willie Thorne back in the day and all that sort of thing, and other players as well. But yeah, so I think there is, and of course you're not looking at it for Leicester centric sports. So yeah, darts and snooker, you would fill it, and also you would have that multi-story car park next to it. Now, how you would get out of the ground, how you would get out of the multi-story car park is a completely different story. Because if you want to talk to me about Elston Road and how many of those traffic lights, how they don't have a couple of police people standing there and waving cars on and stopping one car coming onto the road, and that's stopping thousands of cars getting out onto the ring road. Oh my God, I can beat that. I'll beat that drum for an awful long time, for a number of years, but we won't go into it. Richard going, cheaper, what world are you on? Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean, but that's when I think in that case, if we do, let's just say we have 40,000 seater stadium and the tickets are the same price, I reckon that's when the supporters clubs, etc., they really do then put a lot of pressure on, and I think they'll want to fill it, but you know we can cross that bridge when we get there, because there will be a bridge between the hotel and or the arena and the East End. More for any more.
The cheapest Category C ticket, if you're not in the family stand, is £25 this year, which I think is completely reasonable. To go watch a professional football game for £25 is really good. I think I don't, but again, this is a bit like old men complaining about the world, isn't it? Like, I don't like the fact that you have to pay to be a member to even then be able to get a ticket. Yeah. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I know it's long gone are the days that you could just roll up on a Saturday and buy a ticket. You know.
Well, yeah, every game's going to be all ticket. I completely agree, but and maybe for a league game, I mean, but then again, one man's quid is another man's tenner, so it's
yeah.
that's.
But if we go up into, I don't know what it was like last year, but I think the cheapest tickets last year would have been 40 to £50 the cheapest tickets, maybe 35 I'd imagine, at a push.
Yeah, I'd think it. I'm thinking more along the lines of for league games. There might be a slightly cheaper ticket, but mainly for cup games. That's when you would be able to possibly get in for a £5 or a £10. Genuinely so as well, like a £10. I can't see any reason why, if we had a lower league team in the second round of the League Cup, or maybe even the first round of the League Cup, where you could generally have £9.99 a ticket or something like that, maybe even less. Maybe kids for a quid could come in. It generally could happen if you have a 40,000 ground at Leicester. Whether the will's there from those upstairs, I don't know. But then again, if they have the extra seats, they have the extra infrastructure around the ground, which is extra beer, extra shirts being sold and all that sort of thing. So the more people there, the better overall for the football club. It won't be the price of the ticket that brings in the money. It will be overall what people spend on a match day experience. But there we go.
Just on that,
go on.
If they want to sell more beer at half time, then they need to up their game in the kiosks. Oh my goodness me, how slow are they? Just to have another rant. At half time, just have a load of pints lined up, and you would just distribute them as you go. And they have a ticketing system, don't they, where you can buy your pint machine. You take your ticket to the kiosk and you transfer it for a pint. How many times have I stood there in queues of 20, 30 people all waiting for a pint to be poured? And then they just run the tap and fill it up and give them out. It's just
Jono.
Logic.
Do you want to take a? Do you want me to take a trip down memory lane? When I was at university back in the day, De Montfort University. Yeah, Poly, yeah, but never mind. When I was there, I went to work at the King Power, pulling pints. You're a student, what are you going to do? I went there, first game of the season, and I'm pulling pints, and the person in charge was this lad, didn't know his arse from his elbow. So it turned into a complete nightmare, just like you described there, Jono. This is completely true. I suggested, why do we just pour a load of pints and just do exactly what you just said? Anyway, guy came round in charge, complete nightmare, and he turned around and he goes, all right then, Pete, you're in charge next week. So within a week, I've gone from being just like nobody walked through the thing to being the guy in charge of like one section. So anyway, next game turns up. Anyway, it gets to like 20 past the hour. So it's 20 minutes into the game. And I'm like, right, pour the pints, pour the lager out. And I says, and just keep it poured. Do not just change your pint. Put him on there. And we had acres. We had pints everywhere. A few bitters over here. But just, and people are like, what's going on? This is completely bonkers. Of course, what happens? The away team score about 35, 36 minutes. The away team score. Cue all these Leicester fans coming down. We sold loads. Anyway, this course carried on for a couple of games. This was the thing, and it slowly kind of spread round down the East Stand because I was listening to East Stand. And then, short story, but I went and then worked for a bookmaker and ended up running the away end for about 2 years. But that's a different story. So yeah, it can happen, Johnny. But that should have happened a million years ago. It did when I was in charge, and that is a completely true story. So, Jono, you should be in charge.
So yeah, kiosk number 10, get your fingers out is is basically my message. Kiosk number 10. I want if they manage to organise themselves, I'd probably have 2 pints at half time rather than just maybe necking the 1 pint that I managed to get just before kick-off for the second half. So I've had to absolutely neck it. It's just nonsense. And there's so many people saying the same thing. Why can't they just pour a load of pints and give them out and just keep the tap going? And there's a guy behind there just pouring them ad hoc for people. I'm just like, what are you doing? Just keep pouring. Anyway,
and you're right. And that's what the big show's for, though. That's what the big show's for. But the fact is, everyone will complain about the staff. The staff will all be agency. They'll all be students who are from the universities. It's the same thing, even though it's 30 years later, probably, I don't know, 20, 25 years. It will be agency people from the local universities. They'll come along, and all of a sudden, I don't think they kind of almost realize where they are. And all of a sudden, at half time, there will be thousands of people turn up singing and shouting. And they're like, where am I? What am I doing? Like, all of a sudden, it's like, rabbit in the headlights. Yeah, you're at a football ground. It is quite incredible. But, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's the people in charge who tell them actually what to do. But oh my God,
Susan Whelan,
so frustrating.
Maybe there's a new sheriff in town to sort out the halftime pints.
Right. So we won't. Go on.
I was just going to say, Pete, I was just hoping that was your John Rudkin origin story that you were saying the bloke next to you pulling pints that couldn't do it to save his life. It turned out to be John.
Spilt them everywhere. He put the worst pints up the top, and the best pint. Got rid of the best pints. You know what I mean? Oh my dear me. He sold them for not a lot of money and waited for them until he had to get rid of them for free. When they're at their peak, he didn't let them go. And oh dear, yeah, that sort of thing. But and the pints. But anyway, any more for any more, or we won't tread on the preview because the preview will come next week. Just to let you know what's coming up on For Fox's Sake, we've got the preview next week with Rob Hayes talking all things Portsmouth at home. So stay in tune for that. We will definitely be doing an FPL show this week or over the weekend, talking all things Fantasy Premier League, where we are not doing too bad actually, with Matt Elliott, who's 186th out of 11 million in the world, finished at one point. And then it won't be too long until we do our next episode of The Champions, where we basically look back on this time 10 years ago and what happened in the Champions season. And that was enjoyable, wasn't it, James? People can go back and listen to that show or watch it on YouTube. It was great talking about the beginning of the winning season of 2015-16 and what happened in August and September. So go back and listen to that. That's a good hour with me and James going through all the permutations and what happened, but also where we were and what we were doing and what we were thinking at the time, and looking at the fact that Kante played on the wing for a few games and then moved inside and was brilliant, and just little intricacies like that you forget. And remembering, I think the first game we'll be doing in the next episode is when we won at Norwich, I think, and Jeff Schlupp scored, I think maybe the winner, or he did score. So yeah, little things like that, and who scored in the cup games as well was interesting. So anyway, make sure you stay in contact for that. And of course, the best way to do it is subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can go back and watch or listen if you want to via Spotify or Apple, all of those episodes. 4 shows here, and for fuck's sake. Do make sure you stay in contact on X, on Twitter, at FFSPod, or contact the show, and that's for foxsakepodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook as well. Make sure you give us a like on there, but do make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anything else, Tom?
All I'm going to say is if we get slapped with a 10-point deduction today, we drop down into 21st. So work still to be done. Marty, you got your hands full, but I'm feeling optimistic, and I think we're going to be all right.
There's that fun sponges turn up again. Jono.
Yeah. International break, yawn, says Dorco. Yeah, I quite agree. Yeah. Just can't wait for the next game, to be honest. Hopefully Marty's doing some work on the pitch and drilling those strikers with some shooting practice. Yep.
We need it. And James, great to see that you're not dead. What's your final thought?
Yeah, well, when I was at the Wrexham game, Matty James came on for Wrexham and got a standing ovation, which was really nice to see. But then another player called James McLean came on, who I'd never heard of, and he got booed out of the building. So I don't really know why.
Well, that's a long story, and that's for another day. That is. We won't go into why. We won't go into why. But James, I suggest when we finish the show, which will be in about 20 seconds, just have a Google of why. But yeah, there we go. We won't cross that at the moment. Great to for those who got in contact, and for everyone else, we will see you soon. Make sure you subscribe to For Fox's Sake Podcast on the YouTube channel to enter our competition, which we'll announce shortly. And then we'll see you shortly for the FPL show. And of course, the preview next week. But from us 4 and from everyone who's watching, have a very good evening. And we'll see you next time on The Big Show.